Well, welcome back to Man Camp, and hopefully you're enjoying the new element of video in season 4 of Man Camp. And it's been an amazing journey so far, and we're so excited about this new season as we look at this topic of the pursuit. Like, what are we pursuing in our lives? This concept of what we pursue, we find; what we pursue, we become. And with me today, we have Jeff Zaugg, who is the founder of the Dad Awesome podcast, along with many other things. But Jeff, you are on an epic journey right now with your family. We're gonna get into a little bit of your story, but first of all, thank you for being here with us.
I love Man Camp. I'm grateful for you, Zach, and thanks for, the heart of this ministry and your movement. I'm just like, whatever I can do to help.
I love it. So Jeff and I became friends because of your podcast. So
it was, yeah.
And I actually want to get into how did this start? Because
Sure.
one of my favorite things to go after is people's stories. Because when you find out the origin, the story, the why,
Sure.
you actually personally, I get inspired, challenged. I learn a lot. So this whole Dad Awesome podcast, which I've been able to be on twice, I think.
Yeah.
It's how we initially met each other. As we're going to hear in a little bit, your family's on this epic journey right now. And so we actually never met in person until last year when they came here to San Diego, and we went surfing together, as you should do, right?
The best way to get to know each other in real life.
And now you're back again this year, and we're going to hang out in person on video. You get to see him, not just hear him. And so let's dive into this. The Dad Awesome podcast, obviously, as the name implies, is targeted towards fathers, but beyond.
Sure.
What is it? Tell us a little bit more. And how did you start this journey? I mean, you're several years into this. Tell us a little bit about the Dad Awesome podcast.
Would love to. Yeah, 5 years ago, almost 5 years, it'll be this January, we started Dad Awesome. And when I say we, it has been my friends came around this movement, my family came around the movement, but I had 2 daughters at the time. So here I am, a dad with 2 little girls, and a friend asked me, he's like, how do you stay so intentional about being a dad? And my answer back, when I thought about the books I'm reading, the conferences I've been to, the groups I've been a part of, the podcasts I listened to, I could not answer him and say that was an area of my life. Fatherhood was not an area of my life that I was adding intentionality. I was enjoying being a young dad. I enjoyed my kids, but I wasn't trying to grow in that area. So I started looking I was like, what's out there to learn to be an intentional dad? And overall, my heart kind of moved from searching for myself to could I create something for others? So I did an experiment for 10 weeks, and that became episode 1 through 10. And for every Thursday for the past 250 weeks, we've dropped an episode.
250 episodes.
Yeah, 251 is tomorrow. Yeah.
Come on,
yeah.
That's no small feat in and of itself. Weekly,
it is. Yeah.
I don't know how you do it because we're not weekly, but that's
I'm
impressive.
I'm a golden retriever. So when I stick with loyalty is a big thing. I get after it, I stick with it. But I have found personally, I've just learned so much, and I've told my girls, and I've added 2 daughters since then.
So 4 girls.
4 girls now.
So we have this in common, all girl.
And a golden doodle.
Yes.
So
we have a golden doodle too. Is your golden doodle a boy?
Yeah.
That's
Boomer.
right.
Yeah. So
Boomer and Rocco. We have you gotta have some male support. And I don't know if golden doodles actually. It's not a Rottweiler.
They're so feminine. They're cuddly and girly. Yeah, so true. But I've told them, I'm like, if Dad Awesome is not helping me be a better dad, I've told my daughters, I'm like, I'll walk away from this. It was a passion, on the side for 3.5 years. I did this just as on my weekends, mornings, evenings. It wasn't my job at all.
You were in ministry.
That's right. I was a children's pastor.
Children's pastor, yeah.
So and I've fallen in love with the craft and the pleasure of I get to sit with people and talk about something I care deeply about.
Come on.
And the friends I've made across the country and around the world because of a podcast, a crazy adventure.
It's amazing.
Yeah, great.
We're actually going to dive into some of the things you've learned as you've got to interview some incredible people, hear stories, also in your own journey of being a dad and going after this. But I do want to highlight this. So, you're going on your 2nd year now, I think. You started this pretty epic adventure. It was a big step of faith, not only with your family, but with Dad Awesome. You stepped away from your job as a pastor, and you moved. Tell us, I don't want to spoil it. Tell us what you're doing, because it's cool.
Well, what happened with Dad Awesome, about a year into the journey, we found that a lot of dads would not even step into listening to the podcast, attending the small group, when they think about could I be an awesome dad? There's all kinds of reasons. There's shame, there's guilt, there's baggage that causes dads to be like, no, that's not for me. It's for somebody else. Somebody else is dad awesome. It's not me.
Yeah.
I am dad awful or dad average, which is what I feel like most times, right? Not dad awesome. So we realized, and God gave this idea, mobilize the men towards action, towards a pursuit that's beyond themselves, not their own family. Self-help, dad awesome, really felt like a self-help endeavor to a lot of guys. Like, oh, that's for me to become a better dad for my kids. But as soon as we invited them towards a mission, which is Fathers For The Fatherless. So for 4 years now, we've been hosting these Fathers For The Fatherless 100-mile bike rides.
So century.
They're a century ride.
Yeah.
It takes about 7 hours sitting on a bicycle.
I've done one century.
Well,
and
we'll get you to do another one.
It is no joke.
I'm going to rein you in for another one. But we've done 13 of these across the country now.
Wow.
And over 600 men have said yes to riding. But what we found is by inviting them to a mission, they actually, the divorced dad, the single dad, the dad who it doesn't go to church, the dad who church is a big part of their life and faith is a part of their life, they all could say yes to a mission of helping the fatherless. And let's get in better shape. Let's do something hard. So that initiative, our kind of missional side of Dad Awesome, is what caused our family to hit the road, because I had invites. We did last year 5 cities, rides in 5 cities, and we borrowed an RV, we drove to Colorado, Philadelphia, we drove to Arizona, but I flew to New York and did that ride without my family. Flew out there, amazing team in White Plains, New York, but being there with that group of men and knowing my girls were back home, and I'm encouraging intentional fatherhood, and I realized if I can do this and expand this, bringing my family along. If we can do it as a family instead of a fly away from the family to go encourage being dad awesome. I said, let's try it. And my wife was for it, which is crazy that she said yes.
That's
so
awesome.
we bought an RV, hit the road within like a week of buying the RV, found a renter for our house, traveled 6 months last year. And then this year, we're traveling 9 months in the RV.
So second year of RV
Travel,
life.
Yeah.
Just quick side note, how is that with 4 kids? Do you have your golden doodle with you as well?
We left him behind. So Boomer is 13, and he's living with my mother-in-law, and he's doing great. He's doing great. We fly home a couple times each trip. But yeah, Boomer's at home. It's going well, but it's hard. We're on day 64 of our trip this year, and I count the days. My wife thinks it's crazy. I count the days, but every day it can be a high or a low, but we're in it together, and we're very close together because it's a small space.
Yeah.
And there's times where, like, what are we doing? Like, we love community. We love our church. We love being rooted and planted. And there's a lot of that side that we don't get. We get fractionally. We get through friends. We get through new friends at the RV park that we're staying in. But it's been a stretching trip for us, and it's an only God trip. Like, we would not be doing this if God didn't nudge with green light, green light, green light. And he's made it possible. And we're still actually curious, what's he up to, the bigger picture on this journey. But we travel for the rides, for podcast interviews, partner meetings. We host Dad Awesome meetups as we travel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons to be traveling. And it's probably partially a pendulum swing from the COVID couple of years of Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
If I can be in person and surf with a friend and be in person around a campfire, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So we're choosing that journey.
I love it. I love that you're not just, building something, you're living it, you're going after it, and you've inspired me. So I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful that you're on the podcast. I want to dive into this thing because I love how not only you personally, but you're inviting, calling other men to this thing. Yeah. Even, I love what you said earlier, breaking off like the lies of the dad awful, the dad average, and actually calling people to how God sees them. Yeah. So I want to ask you just a few questions because I think there's a real battle over specifically this role. I'm sure you've used this as well, but I like to say this sacred privilege or sacred honor of fatherhood, of being a dad. We know God as Father. Yeah. And so that translation into being a small representation of that to our kids. And I'll say this, for those of you that are out there that don't have kids, maybe you're single, this is not limited to just natural kids. And even for those of you that are not married yet or don't have kids, I've learned so many things that even before I was a father that prepared me. And so I would say this applies to all of us. We can love and be that representation of God the Father, even if you don't have your own natural kids. But I just want to ask you a few questions. One of the questions I want to ask you is why is fatherhood, or the call of this role of dad, so important for men, and today, especially in this day and age?
I think that most of us who are young dads, I just turned 40, so am I a young dad?
You make 40 look good.
Oh, thank you. Zach. I just think that most of us are still like, have we really experienced a dad who took pleasure in us? Have we experienced a dad who said like, I delight in you, I enjoy you, which is our Heavenly Father's heart. But I think all of us, we experience it in fractional ways. We haven't really experienced a fullness of like, and we're not giving that. I'm not for my 4 daughters showing them a perfect example of like, I love you unconditionally, and I'm messing it up all the time. But I think the more we can press into, we see right in front of us our kids, if we're a dad, or we're investing in the next generation. We all carry influence. So again, to your point of this is for all men can step into this. It's tangible in front of us, the eyes of our kids. You can see, are their eyes shining? And often I think we walk with, we lead with, we run our businesses with instead of a shiny eye, a little bit of dullness or survival mode, because we have not experienced the fullness of God's love for us.
Wow.
And so I think it's the perfect spot, like fatherhood, being a dad for my 4 girls, to actually do some inner work on, am I walking in freedom? Am I experiencing the true love, the beaming pleasure of my Heavenly Father? Because he's like so glad that I'm his son. He's so, his gladness, his joy, his like, I love you. And if I can experience more of that, I'm gonna naturally pass it on to my kids. And they're gonna grow up with a dad who poured more of that love into them and encouraged them regardless of the circumstances or their behavior, if they did everything right. And then they'll send off in the next generation. It's a pass down. So that's the biggest heart, is like, I am truly passionate about like experiencing the love of the Father, passing it on to our kids, and it being just apart from all of the like conditional, do this right, and then I'm a good dad, or do this and this, and you're a good kid. I love you as a kid. So I kind of went all over the place in your question.
That's so
That's
good.
my heart.
I think one of the reasons this is such a battle, or even for many, many men, a very real place of wounding, because we're not perfect as dads. And so many, many men especially have wounds because they didn't get that from their natural dad, or their dad wasn't even present. I mean, this is one of the just stats in society. But I think it's why it's so important. And I love what you just said, because it's not just, be better, don't do what your dad did. It's actually what you said. The way we get this is actually understanding the truth that God loves us. And here's the good news, and we'll talk about this even in how we pursue our kids. Even if you didn't have a good dad, you can break the cycle, because we can receive from the source of God, because this is the gospel. This is the true reality of God the Father, is that He doesn't love us based on performance, all of these things. We can break that cycle.
Yep, the inheritance is ours, right? We're not earning it. And often we talk about guys will sign up for a 100-mile bike ride because they think, I'm helping the fatherless, or I want to do a fitness challenge of 100 miles. And we actually, our secret mission of that ride, and what happens when you join with brothers, all of our rides are team rides, you fundraise for these local and global partners. Like, all of this, I think, moves us towards like, oh, I'm doing something very hard physically. I'm getting closer with some brothers. I'm realizing more depths about what fatherlessness is, and the pains associated with being an orphan or a kid without a dad. The secret mission is actually them realizing I'm living as if I was fatherless. So it is the like awakening moment of like, oh, I thought I was riding for them, but I'm realizing actually there's some freedom work to be done in my heart, that I can experience God and His inheritance as my Father. And now I rode this ride called Fathers For The Fatherless, and it's open to all men, not just dads. So we see the call on all men is to be a father to the fatherless. They realize, oh, I have a father, and I'm living as if I was fatherless, and look at the freedom I can step into.
So good. We need to do that here in San Diego. There's a lot of people that cycle, so
game on.
We'll get that going. And at the end of this interview, we'll share with you ways, if you love cycling or you want to be a part of what Jeff's doing, listen to his podcast. We'll give you all that info. I want to ask you this question, Jeff. How do dads, just really practically, how do dads pursue their kids? Like, you do this yourself with 4 daughters. You've asked a lot of dads questions around this topic. What are some of the things that stand out or resound as just, hey, this is how you pursue your kids or pursue this sacred call of fatherhood?
Well, my wife feels pursued when I put a time on the calendar, get a babysitter, and take her out on a date.
Yeah.
One-on-one time. You always feel pursued when someone makes time in their schedule for one-on-one. So it's the same for our kids. I know you care about this, like daddy-daughter dates.
Yeah.
Now, they're much harder in the RV. And right now, this
There's
season,
no space.
it's just a lot harder in this season to do daddy-daughter dates than it was back when I had a home in Minnesota. But that is one of the, as from all the interviews, like taking one-on-one time with your kids, planning adventures. So I, as I mentioned, just turned 40 and I'm trying to create new experiences and I'm doing them with my daughters. So I went rock climbing for the first time ever with my daughter on her 9th birthday. And I had to set that up ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I did, a friend of a friend, find someone who can rock climb, make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
It was my first time rock climbing. I'd never done that outside. I'd only done indoor, and her first time. We shared a first time moment.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I toured an aircraft carrier in San Diego with my 6-year-old daughter. And she'd never been on an aircraft carrier. I had never been on an aircraft carrier. So we shared a first moment, and it was more of a 3-hour daddy date versus sometimes they're 20 minutes. We're
Yeah.
going to go to the gas station, pick out some Tic Tacs, and then come back. And my 4-year-old, that is a rich daddy date. 20 minutes to go get Tic Tacs. So you can do the big and the epic and the really small, but that's a real tangible way to pursue. I think there is there's moments throughout the day. Bedtime is a way to pursue blessing our kids, looking them in the eyes, putting our hands on them, praying over them. Like that's pursuing their hearts. There's ways to pursue all throughout the rhythms of the day, and go way into different portions of the day, but distractions will keep us from pursuing our kids. So I struggle with the distraction of my phone, my job, ministry. It weaves itself in and out of every day. It's not a clean, these are my work hours. It really is interesting right now in our traveling that I know that's an area that keeps me from pursuing the hearts, and it's pursuing the eyes of my girls. I know they feel pursued because of my eyes and what they feel from my eyes looking into their eyes versus the distractions or the things that keep us, and all of a sudden I'm in like grumpy dad mode and I'm like, I'm not pursuing them. I'm putting up with them. So that's a bit of my metric.
That's so good. I mean, I think it's real too. Like so often it's not a big event. The intentionality, it's moments that can be these experiences, or like just these windows, the consistency of, one of the things I like to look at or ask myself is that, am I connected? So building connection. And if you do it consistently, it doesn't take a lot to regain it. Unfortunately, if there is a disconnect, then you prioritize and go after that. You mentioned this a little bit already, as far as some of the obstacles that can keep us from pursuing or walking in what you just described. So you mentioned distractions, or as practical as your phone or whatever. What are some other obstacles you've personally seen or have heard as you've talked to other dads that get in the way of us pursuing this role or pursuing our kids?
Yeah, this would go back to a kind of a macro obstacle, I think, is the baggage that we carry forward. So I think any dad who's walking with shame, or walking with I'm not valuable, or walking with secret sin struggles, I think any of that is going to put a cloud of I'm not bringing my full heart into fatherhood.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like experiencing forgiveness from past things, or forgiving our dad for something that happened, or forgiving, like walking in forgiveness, walking in joy, like doesn't happen on accident. I think it does take a process, and it takes friends, mentors, it takes pastors, counselors. My wife and I are seeing a counselor right now to help us. This would be maybe into another category of distraction. If there's tension or like just miscommunication, if my wife and I are just missing each other, that's natural. It brings, like, my daughters don't feel pursued. They feel like they're in the way of mom and dad trying to figure stuff out. So that'd be another example of a distraction. We've come up with this simple framework for fatherhood that I think gets after bringing life instead of bringing a distraction, or bringing half of myself to my dad life. So it's the adding life to the dad life framework. So it's the life, and there's so many verses. Deuteronomy 30:19 would be a core one of, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses.
Yes.
Choose life so that you and your kids may live. So it's like the dad gets the choice, life or death. If he chooses life, his kids get to live, get the future generations benefit from the choices dads make. So life is simply, I am loved, is the L, spells out life, acronym. I am loved, I am intentional, I am free, I enjoy my kids. And it's kind of all of the interviews we do on Dad Awesome, all of our content comes back into those 4 areas of identity as a son of God, intentionality, and all the facets of intentionality. Pursuing our kids is part of intentionality. We can't do it without knowing we're a son of God. And then freedom is a huge part. Like we can be a really intentional dads, but if we're not walking in freedom, if we're carrying baggage in that cloud forward, shame forward. But then the last part is I enjoy my kids' pleasure. And the life framework is wrapped in what God said over Jesus when he was baptized. You're my son, I love you. I'm pleased. I take great pleasure and delight in you. And that's our framework is wrapped in the same thing.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I've found that my kids especially are a huge motivation to me to deal with stuff. Because marriage, parent, being a dad is like a mirror. It exposes a lot in us.
All of it.
Our selfishness, our weakness, more than we would like, unfortunately. But it also can be a motivation. It has, I've found in my own life, this thing of I want to, like you said, I want to deal with this so that my kids don't have to. I want to get free in this area so that my kids don't have to. And I've found in my own life, it's been this role of being a dad has been a huge motivator to deal with my own crap. Because I'm and this is this privilege we have. We get to break maybe generational patterns, things that we learned or saw that were not good from our dad, or maybe it went down through generations. We're not victims. that can be broken. But to me, the opportunity, invitation of being an awesome dad is going after that. Not that I'm perfect, but I'm I'm going to do the work because of my kids, because of this role of a father.
It's massive. And a quick real story from 3 days ago. So 3 days ago was Sunday afternoon. I'm helping my daughters learn how to surf. My 6-year-old stands up for the first time by herself. My 4-year-old's out for the first time. I'm pushing her her third time in. A sharp pain hits my foot, and I'm with her. I thought I stepped on a barnacle. It was bad. It was really a bad pain. I knew I was done surfing with my daughter. So we head in. I limp myself in. My foot's bleeding quite a bit. This is just 3 days ago on Sunday, and I was stung by a stingray.
No.
And so I limped my way back to the RV. I'm trying to figure out what is it. One of the guys tells me it's a stingray. My daughters are praying over me. Soaking it in hot water, by the way, is the ticket. But I didn't learn it till an hour in.
No, but you were dying.
Oh, it was bad. It was really bad. And my daughters are praying, and my 9-year-old prayed over me. And about 90 minutes into this, she prayed and she said, "Dad, stand up." And I had tried 2 or 3 times before that to stand up. And I stood up. And I tested it, and she put a Band-Aid and some Neosporin on it, and I washed some dishes, and I was just for sure it's going to be pain. I can't go to the worship night. So this is Sunday night when we had the encounter.
Oh, yeah.
I spent 3 hours jumping up and down worshiping that night. And the joy, because I'd gone through that valley moment, and the reason I'm sharing it right now is I think dads are walking around with a stingray wound in their foot. Whoa. And they're trying to bring life to the dad. They're trying to be dads who are bringing hey, I want to bring joy to my kids. I want to help their hearts. I want to help them follow Jesus. But they're actually, the level of pain that I was feeling, I couldn't bring anything positive to my family at all. My wife and our girls are I had nothing positive to bring. Now I wasn't bringing, they were around me, they were with me, they were watching their dad in pain. The most pain that my girls have ever seen me in.
Yeah.
And it actually brought our family closer. So sometimes I think the dads who carry something or need to actually go into their story a little bit and say, hey, there's freedom to be found there. Our families benefit in knowing that we're working through hard stuff. They benefit. But they benefit as well when the miracle comes. And when they know that their dad gets to go worship for 3 hours jumping up and down, where that didn't make sense to be worshiping that fast. They were part of a miracle. And I just think God wants every dad, every man who's maybe in the future going to be a dad, to not experience that piercing wound from that stingray it's after us. The kill, steal, destroy stuff from John 10:10 is if he can affect a dad, then future generations, like the 18 million fatherless kids in the U.S., that is the game plan of the enemy.
Yeah.
Versus life to the full, which is why our dream
good.
is.
And this is where I think kind of, again, redefining what does it mean to be an awesome dad? It's not being perfect. This is where even in your story, Paul laid this out perfectly. It's in our weakness that his power, his grace is sufficient, his power is made perfect in our weakness. And our kids don't need to see a front of perfection, because none of us are.
Right.
Actually, in our weakness, in humbling ourselves and showing pain or real areas, it's actually part of the process to breaking those patterns, bringing healing, helping them knowing how to deal with this stuff. I just think there's so much we can learn in that. And I think one of the other obstacles, and us walking in this role is unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves.
And then we always fail. Because if we put the
fail,
bar
and
up here, because some dad we saw it from the outside.
Compare expectation, and then we give up. And then, like you said, the enemy won. The goal, and we see this breakdown in the family unit and society, not just the devastation of fatherlessness. I think there are many men who are there but not present. They're not there because of these lies and the tactic. The enemy wants to take you out.
He wants us to numb. That's really the goal, is like just get dads who are just numbing and surviving their way through dad life.
Yeah.
And it's the worst case ever for our kids and grandkids.
Yeah, so good. Well, I want to just do one more thing, just kind of ask you to share a little bit about how guys can find out about what you're doing with the podcast, these rides. How can people jump into this awesome thing that you're doing with Dad Awesome?
Thank you. And we'd love to, whatever we can do to support any of the guys that you're serving. So dadawesome.org, or searching Dad Awesome on any podcast platform. We'd love to have you join. We're working on the first Dad Awesome book right now.
Yes, come on.
So it's kind of collecting all the wisdom from these 5 years and helping it be like a field guide for dads.
And then what about for these rides?
Yeah, so it's simply F4F.bike, F4, letter F.bike is Fathers For The Fatherless. And Instagram is a spot that we share kind of everything coming up as well. But we're doing rides, we're doing Spartan obstacle course races, we're doing a triathlon team, and then some trail running as well. So that we're adding more than just bike ride. So grateful to kind of enter some more. In our 5th year, we'll have other engagement points as well.
I love it. Well, I want to encourage you guys, go listen to the Dad Awesome podcast. I know several of the guys that you've interviewed that just share their stories, their failures, even practical ways that they are going after this thing of pursuing to be awesome dads. And as well as if you're interested in joining some of these Fathers for the Fatherless rides or activities, I encourage you to go check it out. But thank you so much, Jeff, for hanging out with us.
Fun.
I love this topic of fatherhood. As we close, I'll say one of the measures of success that, at least personally, that I look at as a leader. I'm in ministry, you're in ministry. It doesn't have to be ministry, it could be business. What you're doing is that ultimate success for me is not attendance at church for me, or even what other people know about me. It's actually my role as a father, looking at my kids. Like, this is like my first ministry, our first calling, even in leadership, is family. And this ties into this thing of fatherhood. And the good news is we've got a good Father in heaven, and He has given us everything that we need. So
it's a gift. He's gifted it to us, and we get to walk it out.
It's a gift.
So thanks for having me on, Zach.
Thanks for being on, you guys. Thanks again for being with us for season 4 video of the Man Camp podcast. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening, we're just grateful for you to be a part of this journey, to be a part of this community. I encourage you to follow us on mancamp_podcast on Instagram. We would love to hear your stories. You can email us at mancamp@jesusculture.com. We always love to hear the stories of either how these topics we're going after are impacting you, how this community is impacting you. We're just grateful that you're along this ride. It's our prayer that even in this season and in this journey that you are encouraged or inspired to live fully alive, specifically as we're talking about pursuing, going after the calling, the role, the things that He's put in our life. So until next time, thanks for being a part of the Man Camp community. We love you guys. You have what it takes. Let's go after this thing. We'll see you on the next episode.